Give me 3 minutes. That's all I need. The crowd laughed. 23 of the world's best mechanics laughed on. $5 million on the table, and an 18-year-old kid in a gas station uniform was the one asking for a shot. Logan Steele didn't laugh. He looked at the boy for a long, hard moment. Then he said two words that silenced every expert in that garage: come in. What happened next didn't just fix a motorcycle. It exposed something that 30 years of credentials and $5.4 million couldn't buy, and proved that the most dangerous person in any room is the one asking a better question than everyone else. Hit subscribe. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The morning of May 14th started the way all great things start, with noise. Not the bad kind, the good kind. The kind that builds in your chest before something enormous happens. The kind that thousands of people make when they've been waiting for months, when they've driven from 12 different states, when they've camped out overnight just to be part of something they'll tell their grandchildren about. The charity ride had been Logan Steele's idea from the beginning. Not a corporate idea, not a PR move. Logan wasn't that kind of man, and everyone in that world, everyone who mattered, knew it. He'd been building motorcycles for 31 years. Custom machines, one-of-a-kind, frames engines that sounded like thunder and ran like promises. He'd earned his reputation the hard way, not with money, not with connections, but with his hands, his instincts, and a standard so uncompromising that even the people who competed against him respected what he built. And his connection to the Hells Angels wasn't a rumor, wasn't an exaggeration. It was real, and it ran deep. Not every member agreed with every choice Logan made. Not every chapter felt the same loyalty. But the people who knew him, really knew him, knew that Logan Steele had never once backed down from a commitment, never once left a brother behind, and never once built something he wasn't willing to put his name on completely. The Iron Beast was the proof of all of that. He'd spent 4 years building it, 4 years of rejecting parts that were 95% perfect because he needed 100. 4 years of tearing down what other people would have called a masterpiece and starting over because Logan Steele could hear something the rest of the world couldn't, a machine that wasn't quite right yet. When he finally finished it, he didn't take it to a show. He didn't sell it. He announced that the Iron Beast would lead the charity ride, a 200-mile run through 3 states, raising money for veterans' families. The bike would be auctioned at the end. Every dollar would go directly to the families. The announcement spread through the motorcycle community the way wildfire spreads through dry grass. Fast, hot, unstoppable. And on that Tuesday morning in May, 5,000 people had gathered to watch it begin. Logan Steele stood beside the Iron Beast, and for a moment he just looked at it. Not with pride, though he had plenty of reason for it. Not with nerves, because Logan Steele didn't do nerves the way regular people did. He looked at it the way a man looks at something he loves, completely quietly, without needing to explain it to anyone, just holding the feeling inside his chest like something fragile and permanent at the same time. "You ready?" his crew chief, Marcus Webb, asked from behind him. Logan didn't turn around. "She's been ready for 4 years, he said. "I'm the one who took so long." Marcus laughed. "Never thought I'd see you humble." "I'm not humble," Logan said. He swung his leg over the seat. "I'm honest. There's a difference." The crowd began to push forward. Cameras were everywhere, phones, professional rigs, news teams from 3 different networks. The energy was electric, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up even when you don't know exactly why. Logan settled into the seat. He gripped the handlebars. He took one long breath through his nose. Then he pressed the ignition. The Iron Beast started instantly, a roar so deep and clean and powerful that the crowd responded without thinking in a wave of cheers and applause that rolled back through 5,000 people like something physical. Logan let the engine run for 30 seconds. Then he eased into gear, released the clutch, and began to move forward, 47 yards. That's how far he got. 47 yards into what was supposed to be a 200-mile journey, the Iron Beast went completely silent. Not a sputter, not a warning, not a misfire or a hesitation or any of the sounds a machine makes when it's struggling and about to fail. It simply stopped, like someone had reached into the engine and removed whatever invisible thing had been keeping it alive. Logan sat completely still for 3 full seconds. The crowd didn't understand what they were seeing yet. Some people thought it was part of the show. Some thought he had stopped to wave. Some thought there was a delay, a planned pause, something staged and intentional. Then Logan Steele did something that 5,000 people would never forget. He got off the bike. He didn't yell. He didn't kick it. He didn't throw his helmet. He just stood beside the Iron Beast completely still, and stared at it the way you stare at something that has just done the one thing you were absolutely certain it would never do. Marcus was at his side in under 10 seconds. What happened? She stopped, Logan said. His voice was completely flat, not angry, not panicked, just flat in the way that means something has happened that the brain hasn't fully processed yet. What do you mean she stopped? I mean she stopped Marcus. He looked up. Get Rodriguez. Carlos Rodriguez was Logan's lead mechanic. 15 years together, a man who could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone, in most cases who had never once failed to get one of Logan's machines running again. He had the Iron Beast on the diagnostic system within 4 minutes. Rodriguez stared at the readout for a long time. Logan, he said finally, tell me. Everything's reading normal. Logan turned slowly. Come again. Every system, engine health, fuel delivery, electrical, it's all green. The bike is reading completely fine. Rodriguez paused. But it won't start. Try it. Rodriguez pressed the ignition. Nothing. He tried again. Nothing. He tried a third time, checked the reading, tried again. The diagnostic system reported no faults. The engine showed no issues. The fuel system was pressurized and functioning. The electrical systems were nominal. The Iron Beast simply refused to run. Get me 2 more sets of eyes, Logan said. By the end of the first hour, 7 mechanics were working on the bike. By the end of the second hour, that number had grown to 11. By nightfall on that first day, Logan Steele had made a series of phone calls that brought in talent from across the country, factory engineers from Milwaukee, a fuel systems specialist from Phoenix, a man who had spent 20 years working exclusively on high-performance custom builds, a woman named Dr. Patricia Hess, who held 3 patents in electronic engine management and had consulted for 4 different racing championships. 23 professionals in total. Not mechanics in the casual sense. These were the best people available, the kind of people other professionals called when they ran out of answers. And one by one, over the course of 3 days, every single one of them ran out of answers. The story began to spread on the second day. Social media caught it first, the way social media always does. Someone posted a video of the breakdown. Someone else shared it. Someone with a large following picked it up and added commentary. And within 24 hours, the Iron Beast had moved from a local motorcycle story to something that people were talking about in coffee shops, in living rooms, in comment sections across 3 continents. The coverage wasn't kind. Some of it was sympathetic. Logan Steele was well known enough that plenty of people were genuinely pulling for him. But a lot of it was the other thing, the mockery, the snide observation that a legendary builder's masterpiece had died 47 yards into its maiden run. The jokes about craftsmanship and reputation and how far a man can fall in a single afternoon. Logan didn't engage with any of it. He was aware of it. Marcus kept him informed, but engaging wasn't who Logan was. He let his work speak, always had. The problem right now was that his work had gone silent. You need to say something publicly, Marcus told him on the evening of day 2. They were standing in the temporary workspace that had been set up in a large garage near the route the Iron Beast on a custom stand surrounded by diagnostic equipment and the best minds in the industry. People are starting to say things. Let them say things, Logan said. Logan the Hells Angels chapters. Watching this, some of the guys are getting restless. They feel like this is reflecting. I know what they feel, Logan interrupted quietly. I'll handle it. By doing what? Logan was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the Iron Beast and put one hand flat against the tank the way you put your hand against a wall to see if there's heat on the other side. By not accepting that this machine is broken, he said, because she isn't. Marcus studied him. How do you know? Because I built her, Logan said simply, and I didn't build something broken. I built something that has a problem nobody's found yet. He took his hand away. There's a difference, a big one. It was that distinction, subtle, almost philosophical on its surface, that led to what happened next. Because Logan Steele didn't go to the press with embarrassment. He didn't make excuses. He didn't pivot or deflect or try to reframe the narrative. He made an announcement. He did it the way he did everything, directly without performance in front of cameras, but not performing for them. He stood in front of the garage on the morning of day 3, and he said it clearly enough that there was no room for misinterpretation. The Iron Beast has a problem that nobody has identified. I'm offering $5.4 million from my own funds to anyone who can fully diagnose and fully repair this motorcycle and bring it back to running condition. He paused. $5.4 million, cash, no conditions, no time limit, except one. You have to succeed. The silence that followed that announcement lasted about 4 seconds before the world erupted. The number hit differently than most people expected. It wasn't the largest reward ever offered for anything, but in the context of a motorcycle repair. In the context of a machine that 23 professionals had already failed to fix. It was so absurd, so specific, so Logan Steel in its defiance of conventional logic that it immediately became the only thing anyone in the automotive and mechanical world was talking about. $5 million for a bike repair, one commentator said on a major automotive podcast that afternoon. Either Logan Steel has lost his mind or he knows something about that machine that nobody else does. The second theory was closer to the truth, but even Logan didn't know exactly what he knew yet. He knew the Iron Beast was not supposed to fail. He knew the failure had no obvious explanation, and he knew with the bone-deep certainty of a man who had spent 31 years learning to trust his instincts that the answer existed. It was somewhere in that machine, hiding from every conventional diagnostic approach that 23 brilliant people had applied. The reward brought a new wave of arrivals. Championship builders who hadn't been called the first time. Retired engineers who came out of decades of quiet to take a shot at something that had become a legend in the space of 72 hours. Teams of technical specialists who flew in together, pooled their expertise, divided the machine into systems, and attacked each one methodically. None of it worked. The Iron Beast passed every diagnostic. The engine was healthy. The fuel system was functional. The electrical architecture was intact. Every component tested in isolation performed exactly as it should, but the machine refused to run. One of the engineers, a 30-year industry veteran named Phil Garrett, a man whose opinion carried enormous weight in professional circles, came out of the garage on the afternoon of day 3 and said something that immediately went viral. In my 30 years of engine work, I have never encountered a machine that is simultaneously perfect by every measurable standard and completely inoperable. The Iron Beast is by any diagnostic logic we have available functioning properly, and yet it does not function. He shook his head slowly. I have no explanation. Inside the garage, the tension had been building for hours. The Hells Angels crew who had been part of the original charity ride were still present, most of them. Some had left. The ones who stayed were watching everything with a particular combination of loyalty and frustration that only comes from standing by someone you respect, while that someone refuses to accept defeat. One of them, a large man named Cutter, who had ridden with Logan's chapter for 22 years, pulled Marcus aside late on day 3. "Talk to me straight," Cutter said. "Is she coming back?" Marcus looked at him for a moment. "Logan thinks so." "That's not what I asked." "It's all I've got," Marcus said honestly. "Logan thinks so, and in 30 years I've never seen Logan wrong about one of his own machines." Cutter nodded slowly. It wasn't satisfaction exactly. It was the kind of nod that means a man is choosing to believe something because the alternative is worse than uncertainty. And then it was day 4. Day 4 started the same way day 3 had ended, with experts circling the Iron Beast with diagnostic equipment, producing readings that made no sense with the hum of speculation outside the garage, and the weight of a $5.4 million promise hanging over everything like weather. Logan had barely slept. He didn't show it the way most people do. He showed it only in the stillness he'd developed over the last 48 hours, a quality of quiet that went beyond concentration and into something that looked almost like grief, except that Logan Steel didn't grieve things that were still alive. He was waiting, listening in the way he always listened to machines that were trying to tell him something his instruments couldn't capture. At 10:17 in the morning, the garage door was open to the outside because 2 of the specialists needed better lighting for a fiber optic inspection of the wiring harness. That's when Marcus noticed him first. A kid, standing at the edge of the crowd that had gathered outside, wearing a blue gas station uniform, the kind with the logo patch on the chest, the kind you get issued on your first day and wear because you don't have anything better for the job yet. Young, maybe 18, maybe a little less. He wasn't pushing forward. He wasn't trying to get attention. He was just watching, standing completely still in a crowd of people who were jostling and pointing and talking, watching the Iron Beast with an expression that Marcus would later describe as the most concentrated look he'd ever seen on a human face. "Who's the kid?" Marcus said to no one in particular. Nobody answered because nobody knew. For 20 minutes, the kid stood there. He didn't move. He didn't speak to anyone. He just watched with that unnerving stillness, while inside the garage, the world's best mechanics continued to fail. Then he moved. He didn't push. He didn't announce himself. He just walked forward steadily through the crowd to the rope barrier at the edge of the garage entrance. He stood there for a moment. Then he looked at Logan Steel directly and said loud enough to be heard clearly, quiet enough to make you have to pay attention, I can fix it. The garage went still. Not the organic silence of people stopping what they're doing all at once. The sudden absolute silence that happens when something unexpected enters a room and every instinct tells everyone present to pay attention immediately. Logan Steele turned and looked at the kid, 18 years old, gas station uniform, no tools, no credentials, no backup, just standing there at the barrier with the absolute calm of someone who had already worked out the answer and was simply waiting for permission to prove it. Logan studied him for a long 10 seconds. "Who are you?" Logan asked. "Ethan Cole," the kid said. "I work the morning shift at the Sinclair station on Route 9 about 14 miles east." Someone in the garage actually laughed. A short, sharp, involuntary sound. Ethan didn't react to it. "What makes you think you can fix something these men couldn't?" Logan asked. His voice was completely neutral. Not mocking, not encouraging, just a question that needed an answer. Ethan Cole looked at the Iron Beast for a moment. Then he looked back at Logan. "Because I've been watching them," he said, "for 2 days, and I can see what they keep missing." The laughter that followed was louder this time. 3 or 4 people. Phil Garrett shook his head. One of the other engineers turned back to what he was doing, this universal body language of a professional dismissing something beneath his attention. But Logan Steele didn't laugh. He kept his eyes on the kid. "What's your experience?" he asked. "I've been taking apart engines since I was 9, Ethan said. "Anything with a motor that people left at the side of the road. Lawnmowers, ATVs, old cars. My dad showed me the basics before he got sick. I figured out most of the rest." "You don't have formal training?" "No, sir." "You don't have certification of any kind?" "No, sir." "You don't have tools with you?" Ethan looked down at his empty hands. "No, sir. Just 3 minutes." Another wave of reaction from the people in the garage. This time it was a mix, some dismissal, some genuine curiosity, and from one corner the sound of Phil Garrett saying quietly to the man beside him, "Kid's either insane or we're about to be embarrassed." Logan Steele uncrossed his arms. 3 minutes, he said. It wasn't a question. 3 minutes, Ethan confirmed. "That's all I need to diagnose it. Fixing it will take longer, but I can tell you exactly what's wrong inside 3 minutes." Logan was quiet for a moment that felt much longer than it was, and then he said something that nobody in that garage expected. "Come in." The noise that erupted from the people watching outside was immediate. Some of it was disbelief. Some of it was excitement. Some of it was the particular energy that only happens when a crowd senses that the story they've been watching is about to shift completely, that something is about to happen that nobody predicted and everybody will remember. Marcus grabbed Logan's arm the moment Ethan stepped past the barrier. "Logan," Marcus said. His voice was low but urgent. "You're bringing a gas station kid into work on a $5 million machine in front of every major name in this industry." "I know what I'm doing," Logan said. "Do you?" Logan looked at him steadily. "I've been watching people look at that machine for 3 days," he said. "Every one of them looked at it the same way. Same approach, same sequence, same assumptions." He paused. "That kid looked at it different. I could see it from across the room." Marcus stared at him. "You could see it from across the room?" "Yes." "Logan." 3 minutes, Marcus." Logan turned back toward the Iron Beast. "Let's give him 3 minutes." Ethan Cole stood in front of the Iron Beast for exactly 4 seconds without moving. He didn't touch it. He didn't reach for the diagnostic equipment. He didn't ask for tools or lights or technical documentation. He just looked at it. The way someone looks at a very complicated sentence they've just read and are translating in real time somewhere behind their eyes into something that makes sense. Then he crouched down, not to look at anything specific, not targeting a component, just lower, closer to the ground, changing his angle. His head tilted about 15 degrees to the right. 45 seconds passed. Nobody in the garage spoke. Then Ethan stood back up, and for the first time since he had walked in, his expression changed. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't relief. It was the expression of someone who has just confirmed a suspicion, satisfied but already moving forward. He turned to Logan. "Your grounding circuit has a microfracture," he said. "It's showing normal under standard load, but it's failing under heat. That's problem 1. He moved around the front of the bike. "Your dual sensors are talking to each other at slightly offset timing intervals. They're creating a conflict the ECU is trying to resolve, which is problem 2. He stopped at the side. "Your ECU firmware isn't fully matched to your custom fuel map. There's a 3% variance in the calibration that the system is compensating for constantly. That's problem 3. He pointed without touching. Fuel pressure is cycling not dramatically, just enough to create irregularity. Problem 4. He moved to the rear. And somewhere in the back of this wiring harness, there is a factory connector that was seated close enough to pass inspection, but not close enough to maintain contact under vibration. That connector is the trigger for everything else. The garage was absolutely silent. 5 problems, Ethan said. None of them catastrophic alone, but together running simultaneously, they created a cascade failure that looks like nothing because each individual system tests normal in isolation. You have to see them as a system, not as parts. He looked at Logan. That's what everyone missed. They kept looking for the single thing that was wrong. There isn't one. There are 5 things that are only wrong together. Phil Garrett had not moved. He was standing 6 feet away, and he had listened to every word Ethan Cole had just said, and the expression on his face was something that didn't have a clean name. It was the expression of a man who has just heard someone describe something that he recognizes instantly and completely as correct, and who is simultaneously understanding that he himself, with 30 years of experience and every tool available, had not seen it. Logan Steele looked at Ethan Cole for a very long moment. "How long to fix it?" he asked. Ethan didn't hesitate. "Give me 90 minutes and whatever tools you have in this garage," he said, "and she'll run." The crowd outside had no idea what was happening inside. They could feel it, the way crowds always feel a shift in atmosphere without being able to articulate exactly what changed. The energy coming from the garage was different. Something had moved. Marcus Webb stood against the wall with his arms crossed and his face unreadable, watching an 18-year-old kid in a gas station uniform begin to work on the most famous broken motorcycle in the world. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Logan Steele made a decision, not about the bike. He'd already made the decision about the bike. He made a decision about paying attention, about the kind of attention he just watched a teenager give to something that 23 professionals had failed to see clearly, about what that kind of attention looked like, where it came from, what it meant about the person who had it. He filed the thought away. He'd come back to it. Right now, there was a machine that was about to come back to life, and none of them knew yet just how much that moment was going to change. Nobody moved for what felt like a very long time. That was the thing. Nobody who wrote about it afterward quite captured correctly the stillness. Not the silence, because people wrote about the silence plenty, but the stillness. 23 professionals, some of the most accomplished mechanical minds in the industry, standing in a garage around an 18-year-old kid in a gas station uniform, and not one of them moved. Not to object, not to dismiss, not even to look at each other the way people look at each other when they think something is ridiculous and want confirmation that someone else thinks so too. They just stood there because Phil Garrett hadn't moved. And in that room on that day, Phil Garrett was the weather. Whatever he did, the atmosphere followed. Garrett was 61 years old. He had a handshake that felt like grabbing a wrench and a mind that worked like 1-2 precise torqued to exactly the right tension. Nothing wasted. He had been the one 18 hours earlier who had told a reporter that the Iron Beast was simultaneously perfect and inoperable, and that statement had gone around the world. His opinion carried that kind of weight. So when Phil Garrett stood 6 feet from Ethan Cole and said nothing, when he didn't laugh, didn't correct, didn't dismiss, every other professional in that garage recalibrated. Not all the way, not to belief, but away from contempt, which was where most of them had been 30 seconds ago. Ethan didn't notice any of it, or if he did, he gave no sign. He was already in motion, and the way he moved was the second thing that shifted the atmosphere. Because he didn't move like someone trying to prove something. He moved like someone who already knew what needed to be done and was simply doing it in sequence, one step at a time, with the unhurried efficiency of a person for whom the answer is not in question and the only variable is time. He went to the tool station on the left side of the garage and spent about 40 seconds looking over what was available. He didn't ask anyone for help. He selected a ground resistance tester, a wiring probe, a calibration scanner, and a set of precision hand tools that looked almost too basic for the machine he was about to open. Then he went back to the Iron Beast and started. Marcus Webb watched him for about 90 seconds, then walked to the far corner of the garage where Logan was standing. "Tell me what you're thinking," Marcus said quietly. "I'm thinking the same thing I was thinking when I let him in," Logan said. He didn't take his eyes off Ethan, which is that nobody in this room has looked at her the way he just did. Logan, that kid, is 18 years old and he works at a gas station. So Logan said, "Just that. So, the word landed the way Logan Steele words always landed, completely flat, completely final, carrying about 6 different layers of meaning underneath the surface calm. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What if he makes it worse? He can't make it worse, Logan said. She doesn't run. Worse than that doesn't exist, he paused. But he's not going to make it worse. Watch his hands. Marcus watched. Ethan's hands were moving across the grounding circuit, with the resistance tester working slowly enough to be precise and quickly enough to have a rhythm. He wasn't hunting. He wasn't guessing. He moved with the purposeful calm of someone following a map they'd already memorized straight to the location confirmation next point. 40 seconds in, he stopped. He held the tester against a specific point on the grounding circuit and looked at the reading. He held it there for 5 full seconds, not because he needed that long to read it, but because something about what he was seeing made him want to be absolutely certain. Then he said without looking up, "Mr. Steele." Logan walked over. "Yeah. Look at this reading." Ethan held the tester up slightly without moving it from the contact point. Logan looked. His jaw tightened very slightly, the only external sign in Logan Steele's vocabulary of expression that something had just surprised him. The reading was showing a resistance inconsistency so small that standard diagnostic sweeps were calibrated to filter it out as noise. It was below the threshold that any of the 23 professionals had been looking for because the threshold was set based on what a functional system required, and this inconsistency was too minor to register as a problem under normal conditions. Under heat load, it was something else entirely. "That's not on any of the diagnostic reports," Logan said. "No, sir," Ethan said, "because the diagnostics were run at ambient temperature. That fracture only opens up after about 12 minutes of thermal expansion." He paused. "The bike ran for approximately, 47 yards," Logan said quietly.